So we are now having Monday there on the earth, as you say. Nevertheless, I am here and, thus, am not climbing into bed. This is, therefore, not clear. Semyaza says you understand everything very well, you just don't want to accept it because you find it too fantastic. Billy says well, you claim, then, that I am here in my normal present and, at the same time, 2 days in the past. I already lived these 2 past days on the earth below as seen from my present. But since I am now moved 2 days back, I should first start to live these 2 days down there, or rather live through them, while I will, in reality, first live through these 2 days with you yet. This is, nevertheless, crazy. Now, according to your statement, I would actually have to exist twice, namely down there on earth, where I'm going straight to bed, and once here. Thus, I could now visit myself down there, eh? Semyaza says sure, if we would now return to the earth, then you could theoretically or practically, depending on the case, talk with yourself. Billy says aha, I could, therefore, go to my own front door and knock until the door would be opened for me. And who would open for me? I for myself, in my own person. Man, girl, I would just like to see my dumb face once, when I suddenly stand before me and even say hello to myself. At the same time, it just doesn't make sense to me that in the normal time, only 2 hours pass, while the past requires 2 days for it. Semyaza says that is regulated by a time manipulation. Billy says I understand, one of those accursed theories of relativity, which are no longer theories for you. Just listen to me, girl. Let these explanations be, for I'm too dumb to understand it. My head is already smoking. Semyaza says as you wish, but maybe you do, nevertheless, want to visit yourself in the past sometime? Billy says I still want to consider that first, although it excites me to see my own dumb face before me and even talk with myself once. But now, a question has been burning on my tongue for a long time. It's just that I've forgotten it again and again. I know from Ask It and You that 91% of the extraterrestrials visiting the Earth are purely human-like, human life forms, albeit with some deviations from our appearance. Through Ask It, I've also seen various such intelligences outside of and far away from the Earth, such that were rather gigantic in stature and reached more than 4.5 meters. While the smallest dwarfs and short ones were 40 centimeters tall. But they were all really recognizable human forms. Some looked like yetis, others like cyclopes, miniature Goliaths, etc. 2 forms, which I've also never seen on the Earth, were completely different, however. Both were more animal-like than human-like. These were, thus, 2 forms that belonged to the remaining 9% and are, nevertheless, non-human-like human beings. My question now is whether you can, perhaps, make me a list of pictures sometime with the corresponding forms of all these beings that visit the Earth or that previously visited it? Semyaza says that's right, for they are, despite their more animalistic appearance and non-humanity, human beings. Making drawings, however, won't be necessary, for in the near future, you will otherwise come into possession of such a list. To be sure, it won't be complete, but for the rest, I might be allowed to try to transmit to you picture drawings of the remaining life forms. You will, indeed, have to have a little more patience for this. Nevertheless, I can't say whether I will be permitted to make such drawings. Billy says that's fine, then I'll leave the rest of the paper and pencils here for you. Semyaza says that isn't necessary because I will transmit the drawing forms to you directly and guide your hand during the making, if I'm allowed. Billy says then I should draw these. Semyaza says that isn't quite right, you are, so to speak, only the implementing tool. Billy says aha, so something the same or similar as with Petail? Semyaza says sure, it is the same form. Billy says then it will work out all right. I already have experience in that. But from where, then, should I receive the list that you mentioned? Semyaza says you will learn that soon enough. I wouldn't like to speak of it. Everything will be a great and very good surprise for you. Nevertheless, I told you some time ago that you will now have many important contacts with Earth human beings. Billy says that you said, but I haven't noticed much of that yet. Semyaza says I don't lie to you, you will really recognize the truth of my words soon enough. Billy says I spoke no word of a lie, but do you really not want to say who will give me a suitable list of the mentioned life forms? Semyaza says it should be a joyful surprise for you, I told you that, nevertheless. Billy says then just let it be, you secretive person. Semyaza says you really try in vain. Billy says well then I have another question, can you tell me how many extraterrestrials of a good form had contact with Earth human beings since ages ago? Semyaza says I've already expected this question from you for a long time, which is why I also strove for the necessary data. Your question really was to be foreseen for a long time. Very many extraterrestrial intelligences came to the Earth from the entire expanse of the Milky Way for thousands of years. For several centuries, however, there have only been very few, and only a few of these tried to pursue communications with the Earth human beings or even come into closer contact with these. Mainly, the only ones who did so were those who were interested in showing new and better or simply future ways to the human beings of Earth. On the whole, these intelligences were very distant descendants of your indirect ancestors, and only in very rare cases were these different forms of life, but they were still, to a large degree, of a human-like, human form. I can say the exact answer to your question, but with the fact that of all the extraterrestrial visitors to the Earth, only 0.57% of those entered into contact with Earth human beings. Excluded from these are those who traveled from afar, from the depths of the universe, who became resident on the Earth in ages past and who entered into the earthly history of humankind. Billy says that isn't exactly a lot. But now, I have a question that has already occupied me for a long time, namely regarding a statement of the Christian Bible. There is talk there of an anti-time or something like that. When, then, should this time come? Semyaza says this is the prophesied anti-time or the time of the Antichrist, which is falsely laid out in the Christian Bible, in which the Earth human being will free himself from the religious delusion and turn back to the truth. This time is connected to the cosmic age of Aquarius, and the anti-time has already begun with the passage of the first half into the second half of the transitional period, namely exactly at 11:20 hours GMT on the 3rd of February, 1937. Billy says that would be, therefore, the time of catastrophic confusions, of the churches and other religions' mass murders, and of the political and religious wars, of the degeneration of human beings and otherwise all evils of the last centuries, and the coming time of catastrophes, etc., which were prophesied by the old prophets and also by Emmanuel. Semyaza says sure, it's just that they still haven't found their completion because the most severe events are yet to come, and to be sure, sectarian murders and mass suicides as well as religious, murderous riots, neo-Nazi terror, and other terror through right-wing and left-wing radical elements and groups. But in the future, natural disasters will also take the upper hand in a degenerate form, and indeed not in the least by the fault of Earth humanity. Revolutions and wars will also take the upper hand in menacing measures. Billy says then it can still become quite cheerful. Will the atomic blockheads still chuck their firecrackers on their heads? Semyaza says that danger should be averted, at least for now, and according to the probability calculations, that should still be able to be excluded at least up into the third millennium. The values are at 99.8%, therefore, only an erupting madness of a ruling power or the inattentiveness of human beings could trigger a nuclear war. Billy says so this means that for now, there's no reason to fear a nuclear war anymore. Semyaza says sure, if you're thinking of an actual world war. Billy says then humanity can, indeed, be calmed, at least for the next 2 or 3 decades. Semyaza says sure, because such a war could really only be attributed to an erupting madness or inattentiveness. The probability calculations show this with the highest values. Billy says on which one can rely. Semyaza says with complete certainty. Billy says it's reassuring to know that, maybe now, those in different houses will sleep a little more peacefully. Another question, however, was recently brought to me, with which I can't begin much. Wait, yes, I've written it here on this slip of paper. What's with Mount Shasta? This is a mountain or a large hill somewhere, on which mysterious things are supposed to happen. What's up with this? Semyaza says Mount Shasta is an old volcanic mountain with a partially still unexplored area in America, or more precisely, in Northern California. The mountain is very rocky and extremely difficult to climb. In the interior of the mountain itself is a small city, which is inhabited by descendants of extraterrestrials and which, here and there, also receives a visit from their space brothers from outer space. It is a very majestic race, peaceful and good, but which anxiously strives not to be discovered by Earth human beings. The entrance to their very deeply underground city is well camouflaged under the eastern mountain peak, and it is impossible for Earth human beings to find it. But if Earth human beings are ever found in their proximity, then they are made imperceptibly unable to move or distracted by the beam weapons that most of the city dwellers carry on themselves for security reasons. Their golden spaceships of a spherical form, for they master spaceflight, can sometimes be seen when they don't protect these from view. Human beings of this race are very well proportioned in their appearance. Their hair is mostly natural blonde, long and curly, which is very fit for their graceful, Hyperborean nature. Sometimes, despite their shyness of Earth human beings, they go into their villages to conduct unrecognized bartering with them, after which they depart and flee in a great hurry, however, if Earth human beings come too close to them. But Mount Shasta isn't the only place where this race lives, for already at very early times, they divided themselves into 3 smaller peoples, with the other 2 living unrecognized and deep underground on the Aleutian Islands and in Alaska. The whole population amounts to just about 700 human beings. Translators note to see a possibly genuine photograph of such a spaceship. Click on the following link: www.trance.com web link. Billy says that is fantastically interesting, and now, a few things dawn on me. But you've just said something about their appearance, from which I could infer that with this race living underground, it concerns very distant descendants of the real Hyperboreans. Semyaza says you infer correctly. Billy says, man, that's incredible. Then these would, indeed, be the descendants or distant descendants of those who, 180,30 or 190,30 years ago, carried out the actual decolonization in the form that could be regarded, then, as early history of the current human race, at least for the white race. Among them, then, must have also been the Ishwish who gave Enoch great wisdom. Methuselah went to this one in a later incarnation of Enoch, and Noah was later commissioned by this one's guardian angels to build the ark, with which he actually landed, then, on Ararat. Semyaza says sure, except of the event, with the building of the ark, which Noah himself did not build, and with his family and with the animals and everything else became so falsified that no current information agrees with the truth anymore. The events with the ark did truly take place, but at another time, 90,30 years later. Billy says I know that very well, and in these falsified assertions, the boundless stupidity and lack of education of the scribes inevitably comes to full expression, for how else could they have written in their fantasy story that Ararat is the highest mountain in the world, and on the other hand, how, for example, could elephants as well as mammoths, which were still there at that time, rhinoceroses and all other 4-legged animals, etc. have climbed down from Ararat? I happen to know the mountain very well and know that even a good mountain climber has lots of distress and trouble when wanting to